Winter wind whips across an empty roadside, carrying the bite of approaching snow. Daniel Carter, 39 with calloused mechanic's hands, pulls over beside an old sedan with its hood up, steam curling into the cold air like ghostly fingers. Beside it, a woman in her mid-30s, Anna Blake, wraps her coat tight around herself, worry etched in her tired eyes. "Need a hand?" Daniel calls, stepping into the wind. In the back seat, two kids press their faces to the glass, watching. "Stay with us. This touching story will show how one moment can change everything." The highway stretched empty in both directions, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through farmland that had surrendered to winter's grip. Bare trees stood like skeletal sentinels against the gray sky, and the air carried the metallic smell of snow that hadn't quite decided to fall yet. Daniel's hands worked quickly under the hood, checking hoses and belts with the efficiency of someone who'd spent 20 years making broken things whole again. His breath formed white clouds in the frigid air as he diagnosed the problem with practiced eye movements that missed nothing. Anna stood close enough to see what he was doing, but far enough away to avoid crowding, her posture carrying the nervous energy of someone unaccustomed to accepting help from strangers. "I really don't know much about cars," she admitted, her voice apologetic in the way that suggested she felt she should know more about the machine that carried her family's daily life. "Radiator hose," Daniel explained, pointing to the culprit with one grease-stained finger. "Not a big deal, but it'll need replacing soon. For now, I can get you running again." He worked with the quiet competence of someone who found satisfaction in solving problems that had clear solutions. She explained she was a teacher, third grade at Riverside Elementary, and a widow since last year, raising her two kids alone on a salary that stretched like elastic between necessity and hope. Her voice carried the kind of tired strength that came from carrying burdens that were too heavy but couldn't be set down. In Daniel's truck, Emily waited with the patient understanding of an 11-year-old who'd learned that her father's kindness towards strangers was as predictable as sunrise. She watched through the windshield as her dad worked, noting the way the woman's shoulders relaxed slightly as the steam stopped rising from under her hood. 20 minutes later, Daniel had the engine running smoothly again. When Anna reached for her purse, he waved her off with the casual gesture of someone for whom helping others wasn't a transaction requiring payment. "Drive safe," he said, wiping his hands on a rag he pulled from his back pocket. "And if you need a mechanic who won't overcharge you, I know a good one." His smile carried warmth that cut through the cold air between them. A week later, their paths crossed, again in the least romantic setting imaginable. The cereal aisle of Miller's Grocery, where Anna's son Ben and Daniel's daughter Emily both reached for the same box of Lucky Charms with the kind of territorial determination that only children could muster over breakfast choices. The mothers found themselves laughing at the standoff, introductions flowing more easily this time without the urgency of automotive emergencies and frigid roadside wind. Anna remembered his kindness. Daniel remembered her grace under pressure. "Coffee?" Daniel suggested, nodding toward the small cafe across the street where locals gathered to discuss weather and gossip with equal intensity. "Unless you're in a hurry to get home to those Lucky Charms." The laughter that followed came easier than either had expected. Two parents, both scarred by loss but not broken by it, discovering how much they understood about each other's carefully reconstructed lives. Emily and Ben declared the cereal dispute a tie, agreeing to share the box if their parents would buy them hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. In that moment, surrounded by the ordinary magic of grocery store fluorescent lights and children's laughter, something shifted between them, subtle but unmistakable, like the first warm breeze that hints at spring's eventual arrival. Over the next month, casual meetings transformed into planned ones, with the gentle inevitability of rivers finding their way to the sea. What began as coincidental encounters became intentional gatherings, playdates at Riverside Park, where autumn leaves crunched beneath running feet, shared dinners where conversation flowed around kitchen tables, and school pickups that mysteriously aligned despite different class schedules. Emily discovered her natural gift for teaching when she helped Anna's daughter Sophie master the art of bicycle riding. "The trick," Emily explained with the patient wisdom of someone who'd recently conquered the same challenge, "is to look where you want to go, not at what you're afraid of hitting." Sophie's triumphant laughter when she finally wobbled forward unassisted became the soundtrack for a friendship that would span decades. Ben found himself drawn to Daniel's garage, where tools hung in organized rows and half-finished projects waited for weekend attention. "Hand me that sandpaper," Daniel would say, teaching the boy how to smooth rough edges from wood that would become a coffee table, a bookshelf, or a memory box. Ben's small hands learned to feel the difference between coarse and fine grit, between work that was ready for the next step and work that needed more patience. One rainy Thursday evening, when November storms knocked out power across 3 counties, Daniel arrived at Anna's door carrying candles and thermoses of soup, still steaming from his kitchen. "Emergency dinner service," he announced, as if showing up during blackouts was the most natural thing in the world. By candlelight, their carefully guarded stories began to emerge like shy animals venturing from hiding. Anna spoke about her late husband's infectious laugh, the way he'd sung off-key lullabies that somehow worked better than any professional recording. Daniel shared the promise he'd made to his wife during her final hospital stay, that he'd raise Emily to be strong and kind, that he'd find ways to keep joy alive in their house even when grief tried to claim all the space. The children fell asleep on the couch in a tangle of shared blankets, exhausted from an evening of shadow puppet shows and whispered ghost stories that were more funny than frightening. The adults continued talking in voices kept low to preserve the spell, the air between them filled with the kind of trust that usually took years to build, but somehow felt as natural as breathing. "I think they belong with us," Emily told her father the next morning, her observation delivered with the matter-of-fact certainty that children brought to emotional truths adults struggled to voice. Daniel found himself studying Anna across grocery store encounters and playground conversations, noticing the way she listened to his stories with complete attention, how she never rushed to fill comfortable silences with unnecessary words. She noticed his gentleness with all 4 children, the way he could redirect an argument into laughter without anyone feeling dismissed or unheard. Their friendship deepened through shared logistics, carpools that became coffee dates, homework help that became dinner invitations, emergency babysitting that became regular weekend routines. They discovered compatible approaches to parenting, similar values about kindness and responsibility, and a shared appreciation for small pleasures like Saturday morning pancakes and Sunday afternoon board games. Anna began to recognize the sound of Daniel's truck in her driveway before she saw it, the particular rumble of an engine he'd rebuilt himself with careful attention to every component. Daniel found himself taking longer routes past the elementary school where Anna taught, sometimes catching glimpses of her during recess duty as she refereed playground disputes with patient wisdom. The children served as natural ambassadors between their families, creating bonds that pulled the adults closer through shared investment in young hearts that had decided everyone belonged together. Ben started calling Daniel's house our other home, while Sophie began asking Anna why they couldn't all live in the same place like a real family. Neither adult rushed toward answers, both understanding that some questions needed time to reveal their solutions. But they felt the gentle current pulling them towards something neither had dared to hope for, a second chance at the kind of love that made ordinary moments feel like celebrations. Winter began its retreat into memory, and with its departure came the sense that their careful courtship of friendship was ready to become something more permanent, more intentional, more willing to risk the vulnerability that love always demanded. Keep watching, because life is about to test everything they've built. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning that had started like any other, with coffee brewing and children arguing about whose turn it was to feed the neighbor's cat. Anna's late husband's parents, people she'd spoken to maybe 6 times since the funeral, announced they were driving down from Minnesota to discuss the children's future. They arrived like a weather front, bringing the kind of certainty that brooked no argument and the financial resources to back up their convictions. Harold and Margaret Saunders had spent the year since their son's death crafting a plan they believed was beyond question. Anna and the children should move to Rochester, where they'd purchased a house 3 blocks from their own and arranged for Anna to interview at the best elementary school in the district. "It's what's best for the children," Margaret declared over coffee in Anna's living room, her voice carrying the tone of someone who'd never questioned her own judgment. "They need stability, family support, and honestly, dear, you need help raising them properly. We can provide all of that." Harold spread financial documents across the coffee table like a general deploying battle plans. "No more struggling to make ends meet," he said, pointing to numbers that represented more security than Anna had seen since her husband's death. Good schools, safe neighborhood, and family close by. What more could you want? What more indeed? Anna found herself staring at the practical solution to every worry that kept her awake at night. Money for Sophie's orthodontics, funds for Ben's college education, the kind of support system that single mothers dreamed about but rarely found. When Daniel arrived for their usual Tuesday evening dinner, he walked into tension thick enough to cut. The children had retreated to Sophie's room, their voices subdued by adult conversations they didn't fully understand, but instinctively feared. Anna's eyes were red-rimmed, and she moved through the kitchen with the mechanical efficiency of someone trying to hold herself together. She explained the situation in careful, neutral language that revealed nothing about her own feelings. Daniel listened without interruption, his expression unreadable as he processed the implications of what she was telling him. "What do you think I should do?" Anna asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, watching her hands as she folded and refolded the same dish towel. "I think," he said slowly, "you have to choose what's right for Ben and Sophie, even if it's not right for me." His answer was exactly what she'd expected and exactly what she'd hoped not to hear. No promises, no arguments about what they'd built together, no selfish pressure to consider his feelings over her children's welfare. Just the kind of selfless love that made her heart break and mend simultaneously. That night, after Daniel had gone home and the grandparents had retired to their hotel, Ben appeared in Anna's doorway in his Batman pajamas, his face serious with the weight of 8-year-old wisdom. "Mom," he said, climbing onto her bed without invitation, "I don't want to move away from Daniel and Emily. They feel like the family we used to have, but different. Better, maybe, because nobody's sick or sad all the time." Anna pulled him close, breathing in the scent of his shampoo and the lingering traces of Daniel's aftershave that had somehow transferred during their earlier hug. "What if moving meant you could have things we can't afford here? Better schools, a bigger house, college money?" Ben considered this with the gravity that came naturally to children who'd learned early that life rarely offered simple answers. "But what if staying meant we could be happy? Really happy, not sad?" Before Anna could answer, Emily appeared in the hallway, Sophie close behind her. "We heard talking," Emily explained, though her presence felt less like eavesdropping and more like moral support. "Ben's right, Mrs. Blake. We belong together now, all of us." Sophie nodded emphatically, her usually shy demeanor replaced by fierce determination. "I don't want to live somewhere else. I want to stay here with Emily and Mr. Daniel and you." Anna spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, her mind cycling through practical considerations and emotional truths with equal intensity. The grandparents' offer represented security and family support, but it also meant leaving behind the life they'd all begun to love, the relationships that had helped them heal from grief's deepest wounds. By dawn, her heart had made the decision her head had been struggling to reach. The next morning arrived with spring's first tentative warmth, sunlight streaming through kitchen windows that had seemed dark for too long. Anna found Daniel in his garage before the children woke up, her decision weighing in her chest like a stone that needed to be set down before it grew too heavy to carry. "I'm staying," she said without preamble, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what those two words represented. "It's not just my family anymore. It's ours." Daniel set down the wrench he'd been holding, his smile slow and brilliant like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. "Are you sure? Because once I start thinking of Ben and Sophie as mine too, I'm not going to be able to stop." "I'm counting on it," Anna replied, stepping into his arms with the certainty of someone who'd finally stopped fighting the current and decided to trust where it was carrying her. The grandparents took the news with predictable disappointment, their practical arguments crumbling against the united front of 4 children who'd claimed each other as siblings and 2 adults who'd found love in the ruins of their separate griefs. They left with promises to visit more often and grudging admission that the children seemed happier than they'd been since their father's death. 6 weeks later, the backyard of Daniel's house had been transformed into something magical. Fairy lights hung between oak trees like captured stars, their warm glow competing with the first fireflies of summer. The smell of grilled corn and barbecued chicken mixed with the sweet scent of honeysuckle that climbed the back fence in wild abundance. Children ran through the grass in bare feet, their laughter mixing with the gentle murmur of adult conversation and the occasional bark from the neighbor's dog, who decided the party extended to his yard as well. Emily and Sophie had claimed the tire swing, taking turns pushing each other toward the darkening sky, while Ben helped Daniel flip burgers with the serious concentration of someone entrusted with important responsibility. Anna stood at the edge of the patio, watching their children, all four of them now officially and permanently, create memories that would anchor them to this place, this moment, this choice to believe in love's capacity for multiplication rather than division. "Penny for your thoughts," Daniel said, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of sweet tea that clinked gently as ice settled. "Just thinking about how different this summer is from last summer," Anna replied, accepting the glass gratefully. "Last year, I couldn't imagine ever being happy again. This year, I can't imagine being anywhere else." Daniel nodded, understanding flooding his expression. "Emily asked me yesterday if we could officially adopt Ben and Sophie. Make it legal," she said, "so they'd really be her brother and sister forever." "What did you tell her?" "That we'd need to ask their mom first," Daniel said, his tone carrying a question that hung in the summer air between them. Anna's answer came in the form of a kiss that tasted like sweet tea and possibility, witnessed by 4 children who cheered with the uninhibited joy of young hearts that had found their forever home. Later, as the evening wound down and the children reluctantly agreed to baths and bedtime stories, Emily slipped her small hand into Daniel's, while Sophie clung to Anna's leg with the possessive contentment of a child who no longer worried about where she belonged. A single spark from the fire pit drifted upward, a tiny orange ember that caught the breeze and rose toward the stars, like a blessing released into the night sky. Anna watched it disappear into darkness, carrying with it the last of her fears about choosing love over security, family over safety, hope over certainty. The house settled around them with the comfortable sounds of a family preparing for sleep. Water running, teeth being brushed, the gentle murmur of bedtime stories being shared across 2 rooms that had once housed loneliness, but now overflowed with the ordinary magic of children who knew they were loved completely and permanently. Outside, fireflies continued their ancient dance among the fairy lights, creating a celebration that would continue long after the human participants had surrendered to dreams of tomorrows that stretched ahead like promises waiting to be kept. In the morning, there would be breakfast chaos and school preparations and all the beautiful mundane responsibilities of family life. But tonight there was only this: love multiplied, hearts healed, and the profound peace that came from choosing to build something beautiful from the scattered pieces of separate sorrows. If this touching story moved you, subscribe to our Heart Stories for more tales of love, family, and second chances.